Let's talk about trends in defense. Defenses are always challenged by the offense. Recall, and you know, that the offense is going to call their personnel group into the game. They're going to call their play. Defenses have to respond to it. We all know this is a passing league. What has happened over the last 5 to 10 years? Defenses have gotten smaller. We're starting to play with people that can play the pass first, the run second. Tony Sparano, the head coach in Miami, said to me, it's getting really close to us going back and tightening those splits and running a power run game at these undersized speed defenses that are on the field. Take a look at the New England Patriots in this last draft. They go out and they draft Marcus Cannon, the most powerful, strongest offensive lineman in the draft. They draft 2 more running backs. Don't tell me they haven't figured out it's time to have a big power run game against these undersized defenses. What are the defenses really doing? You hear 3-4, you hear 4-3. Those are true statements for first down defenses, but guess what's really happening? Everybody's in a hybrid look. They're trying to play with players that can do at least 2 things. Outside linebackers that can drop and rush. Corners that can play like safeties. Safeties that can play like corners. Middle linebackers that can drop to the deep middle. That's why Von Miller was drafted so high. You look at that Texas A&M outside linebacker, pass rusher, he can do it all. He can line up with his hand on the ground. He can drop into coverage. He can play man coverage. So everybody wants to get flexible and play a hybrid look. I'll go to Dom Capers on this, and he showed us something with that 2-4-5 defense in the Super Bowl. 2, the first number, how many linemen in the game? 4, the second number, how many linebackers? 5, the third number, how many secondaries? Only 2 defensive linemen in the game. How do you get away with it? You know what? The Steelers didn't run against it once. They saw that defense on 5 second down and 6 situations. In the old days, that's a run check right now. They continued to throw the ball. They played right into the hands of Dom Capers as he just took 2 defensive linemen on a second down and moved them down the line of scrimmage, just basically daring the Steelers to run. They didn't do it. This year's off-season film study, and we know the coaches have a lot of time to do that, they're all looking at that, and they're going to have some run checks. So get ready for the offenses to go after these undersized defenses that have gimmicked them all up just to defend the pass. Time to talk about the 3-4 defense, the fastest growing defense in the NFL over the last 5 years. We used to have a time when the Buffalo Bills with Bruce Smith ran it and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that was it. And all those 2 teams had the pick of all the players they wanted to play the outside linebacker position and the nose tackle. They had players that the 4-3 teams didn't want, but now we're up to 50-50. Half the league in a 4-3, half the league in a 3-4. We've already talked to you about hybrid defenses, how they switch things up. But on draft day and free agency period, you've got to go out and get players that have the traits to play the defense. We'll start up front with the 3-4. You know, Bill Parcells said this to me when he went to the Dallas Cowboys. He said, Bill, you going to get back to your 3-4? He said, not really. Not until I have enough pieces to that puzzle. It took him 2 full years to get enough players to convert to a 3-4. We've seen other teams jump right into a 3-4. As soon as a new coach gets there, it fails. Coach is fired. We see in Denver now, they've got John Fox in there, and they're going right back to a 4-3. It's a challenge to switch, flip the switch and change defenses. What do we want, and how does this defense start? Starts with the nose tackle. You want a nose tackle in a 3-4 defense, preferably in a 6'2 to 6'4 range, 350 to 375 pounds. A massive man. You want him to force a double team. You want the guard in the center to be thinking about putting 2 blockers on him at all times. If you don't get that, if you get a defense where Mangold from the Jets can say, I can handle the nose by himself, you're in trouble. The integrity of your 34 defense is in trouble. The next thing is the inside triangle. You'll hear this in the book. You'll hear me talk about it a lot. It's the nose tackle and the 2 inside linebackers. Those 3 players are controlling the inside of the defense and the inside of the running game, and those linebackers need to be free, at least one of them, because of the double team on the nose. If you don't get a double team on the nose, we'll go to the board to show you this, the guard's going to go right up on the linebacker, and he's going to have problems. Let's take a look at the inside triangle right here. Here's the nose tackle. The prototypical player is Vince Wilfork from the New England Patriots, all right? And we get a 350-pound man in here, and we want that guard and that center to be thinking they've got to double him because the center can't handle him. If you don't have that, and the center says, I can handle him, this guard is coming right up on the linebacker right now. And these linebackers are playing in the 240 to 245 range. This is Chris Sneeze, 325 pounds, and there's no defensive lineman protecting the linebacker from Chris Sneeze. So we can't have that. We've got to make sure that the guard has to go this way to handle the double team so I can make plays and do the things I want to do as a linebacker. That's the premise. Here's the inside triangle right here. Those three guys have to be controlling the inside run game, and in a lot of ways, they're looking to handle 4 gaps with 3 players. They certainly are looking to ask the nose tackle to handle both A gaps in the run game. And they're going to 2 gap. So let me talk to you about 2 gapping. I'll go sideways so I show you. When the ball snapped in this defense, the nose tackle and the 2 ends, they're not going to rush upfield. They're going to strike like this into the center and the 2 tackles and try to control them on the line of scrimmage. 2 gapping, a principle of the 3-4 defense. They want to manage those 3 players and not let them go anywhere. So if you got them, if you got players that can do that, you have a chance to have a good 3-4 defense. The traits of the 2 defensive ends, you'll hear it in the book, you'll hear me talk about it, they're called 5 techniques. Why? Because that's the alignment that they play. It's not really a technique as much an alignment, and it means that they're playing on the outside shoulder of the tackle. But on the snap of the ball in the base defense, nose tackle, strike the center, make the guard help. Defensive ends, strike the tackles. You want guys with long arms. Richard Seymour, prototypical 5 technique defensive end. Why? 6'5", long arms, 35-inch arms, so when he strikes the tackle, he can keep the tackle off him with his arms, get separation, and find the football. Here comes the running game. He's sitting on top of the tackle. The running back who's trying to read him can't decide which gap he's got because he's playing on the tackle, not showing you which one of those 2 gaps he might have. What they like to do, and you'll hear this expression in football quite a bit, it's called flashing the hat. I'm the defensive end. I'm striking the tackle. I see the running back coming. I put my head inside right here to tell this running back, oh, I'm inside. I'm a B-gap player. Now he takes it out here, and I'm not really playing the gap. I just flash my hat. I'm really playing 2-gap, and I can make the play. So they make the running game tough, but they've got to be big. You cannot play this with a 4-3 defensive end who's 6'2" and 265 pounds. You need big people in here. Okay. From there comes the outside triangle. And we start looking at the outside linebackers in this defense. And this is why a lot of people have gone to the 34 defense. They found out there's just not enough pure 4-3 defensive ends in college anymore. There's a lot of undersized 255, 260-pound players, and they're teaching them to be outside linebackers. Here's your outside triangle. Those 3 players now form the group that's going to handle those gaps plus the pass drops. Your outside group, the inside backers, hopefully that you've got yourself players that have a nose tackle that are helping them. If you don't, they're not going to be able to help the outside triangle. They're going to be tied up with the guard, as we've explained to you. Now the outside backers. When you're in a 34 defense, you're not asking these defensive linemen to be great pass rushers. You're asking them to hold up against the run. You're asking the outside linebackers to deliver 20 sacks. Pittsburgh Steelers. Lamar Woodley, James Harrison. Outside linebackers, 34 defense, they're going to give you 20 sacks a year. And Pittsburgh's always had players like that. Teams that are playing this defense that don't get 20 sacks from the outside backers are in a lot of trouble because they can't rush the passer. Remember the 3 linemen? They're striking like this. Uh-oh, it's pass. They're not trying to get upfield. Now they have to try to get upfield. They're not going to get there in time. These guys have to be the players that get the sacks. You need to go find players that can do it. Interesting note. Houston is taking what I'd call the best 4-3 defensive end in pro football, Mario Williams, who played here. Now they're switching with 34 defense. They're saying we don't want him 2-gapping. We want him to be here. He's 6'6", 290 pounds. What a challenge to get him to be able to play. He'll rush the passer from here. But do you think there's ever going to be a time that an opponent's not going to tell this tackle, you've got Mario, you've got him. The running back or the fullback's going to take that guy. They're going to still slide the tackle to Mario. Here's what an offensive tackle said to me the other day. Hey, I think he can do it, but you know what I'm excited about? Mario's going to rush me standing up, 6'6", 290. I got all that surface area to block. When he used to come out of his 3-point stance, I had his arm rip into me, and he was under my pads. He's never going to be under my pads. So offensive tackles are already starting to think this is good for them. We'll find out as time goes on. But you also know that Houston's probably never going to drop him into coverage. So what are they really telling you? They're telling you that on the snap of the football, they're going to look like a 3-4, but they're going to become a 4-3. And how are they going to do that? They're going to move this guy. They're not going to two-gap the end. You can understand now what that means. To get Mario rushing the passer, they're going to move him and slant him and bring him down to here. If they can't beat the tackle, and that tackle's right, that Mario's surface area is so big, they're going to do this. Twist and put him on the guard. That is an advantage that the 34 defense will give Mario Williams that he did not have in a 4-3 when he was in a three-point stance. 34 is a growing defense. Why do people really like it above and beyond all this? Because when an offense now goes shift, and the running back goes here, and the quarterback goes here, and that's Reggie Bush, and Reggie Bush goes in motion, and there's no backs in the backfield, look how many more people they have standing up. The only people with the hand on the ground are these three players. They have the flexibility with those four to adjust to empty sets. Okay, on to the 4-3 defense. This has been around a long time. People are playing it. There's a lot of variations to it. Where is it different from the 34 defense? This is a one-gap penetrating defense. There are some small variations teams have played in the past with guys like Garrett Saragusa in Baltimore where they two-gap. But generally, you're trying to draft players that can penetrate, that have great quickness. The guys like Nick Farley that went to Detroit in this last draft, he's got drafted there because of his great ability to penetrate and get in a gap. When you understand this defense, 4-3, 7 players, 3-4, 7 players, you're still trying to play this with 7 players in a box. They're trying to fudge it in a 34 and hold on and see where you're going to go. The 4-3 isn't waiting. They're attacking, and I'm going to show you how they do it and how they use line stunts. And I'll also show you the variations of the 4-3. So when we get to the board, I'll get the gaps lettered for you. A, B, C, D. This is how coaches talk about them. A, B, C, D out the other side. The A gap is a gap between the guard and the center. We've talked about it before. Then the B, then the C, then the D. On the snap of the football, we are going to try to get a player in every gap. And this is a 4-3 defense with a nose tackle shaded to the strong side, tight end side, defensive tackle to the weak side. That's called 4-3 under. And we don't really need to get into that, but you need to understand why I'm moving. I'll move them later for you to a 4-3 over, and they play it like this. But for now, let's work from the 4-3 under defense, very popular in the NFL, made famous by Tony Dungy, and guys that play the Tampa 2 play a lot of this. All right, it looks like the nose tackle's got the A gap. It looks like the middle linebacker's in the B gap, and the defensive end's in the C, and the sandbacker's got the D. That's what the pre-snap read looks like. On this side, we see the same thing, and we say, okay, we're not sure who has the A. There's a stack here, and there's a defensive end, but we can see how this is all going to operate. When the ball is snapped, the defense knows they're undersized, they know they're quick, and they're going to take advantage of their quickness by stunting the front. I'll give you a couple of stunts. We have one-man stunts, all right? And that means just one guy is going to go. And a very typical famous one run by Warren Sapp and probably going to be run by Nick Farley is a spike. And on the snap of the ball, the guard's saying, okay, he's in the B gap, he goes and runs into the A gap, and the will is assigned for the B, and everybody plays that gap that they had. And they're going to penetrate, right? This is a penetrator, right? Penetrator. That means they're coming into the backfield. They have no intention of staying on the line of scrimmage, coming into the backfield, all right? And the linebackers obviously aren't doing that unless they had a blitz call. But we're coming into the backfield with the front four, so you need quickness. All right, as soon as we decide that you've understood how to handle that one little stunt, they're going to change the stunt. And they're going to now say, we're going to ram the front. All right, another one-man stunt is a ram. So when the ball's snapped, instead of me being the C-gap player, I fire into the B-gap player, and the mic replaces me in the C. Very simple, right? You say, well, how tough is that to understand? What coaches are doing on defense is this. If that fullback is lined up here, we want you to ram it and bring the defensive end because we think the running game's going this way, so we want to bring a player from the other side. If we see the fullback on this side, it's called dual stunting. They call spike ram in the huddle. If we see this, we're predicting the running game's going this way, so guess what? We want to stunt him into that gap. All right, so after we learn the stunts, then we start to apply them to the formation tendencies you give us. The next one is a two-man stunt, all right? And these are pretty popular and very effective in football. So one of the ones that we like to use is a text or an edit. Edit, end first, end, then tackle. Text, tackle first, then end. So if we have a weak text on, it means on the snap of the ball, I'm running to the C gap, he's taking a step and running to the B gap. Trying to get the guard and the tackle to misfire, and it should tell you that the will backer has the A gap. So when you coach the will backer, you tell them, okay, what do you do on a spike? Remember spike? Came in here. What do you do? I got a B gap. What do you do on a text? I got the A gap. That's so they're always understanding their gaps. So there's a stunt between two players, a two-man stunt. You can run the same two-man stunt over here. When a lot of times teams will crowd him in here like this, he thinks he's coming this way, and it's this, here and here. So you can move them all around. And finally, I'll show you a pass stunt, very popular in NFL. You watch a game starting tomorrow, you'll see it, you'll recognize it, you'll be happy you learned it today. It's called a pirate. Most teams call it a pirate. He comes down in the A gap, he comes in the B gap. They usually run it when they have themselves. The will backer's taking this, but the nose tackle is gonna, get this, he's gonna stand in here and hold this gap. He's not gonna rush now. He's gonna come looping all the way around to be the contained rush run pass. So we have three-man stunts to go along with it. Why are they doing it? They want to confuse the offensive line. They want to move their players because they're not big. They're taking advantage of their quickness, nothing else. That's the 4-3 defense and the principles of it. You'll see teams change the front a little bit and move it like this, and what we used to call the old Pro 4-3, where they put the two defensive tackles directly on the heads of the guards. You can do some of that. You can see the under front where the tackle's to the weak side. Sometimes they put the nose tackle here, and they move this guy over here, and they call that an over front. All right? Those are the simple principles of the defense. Remember, there's 7 in the box. But if you ask anyone in a 4-3 defense what gap you have, they know, no matter what the stunt call is, they know which gap is theirs. You don't play football unless you're explosive. And when you're inside on the offensive line or the defensive line in what we call the combat zone, you've got to be explosive every play. Think of this, 60 football plays in a game on average, and on every one of them, at least 10 people are going to hit each other and collide on the snap of the ball, and then they've got to react violently to be able to disengage from that block and make a play. So when you go and watch the combine results, you can cynically look at that combine and say, oh, a bunch of guys running around in shorts. What does a standing broad jump have to do with football? What does a bench press have to do with football? I'll answer your question, nothing. But if you're starting to look for hints and clues as to who's explosive, I'll give you a little test that I've been using for a long time, and I can back it up with years and years of results. I like to take 3 tests. I like to take a look at those tests, and I like to say, does the combination of these tests show me something about explosion? Let me go to the board and show you what I mean. These tests are about a violent movement, the bench press test. They're going to bench 225 pounds as many times as they can. The vertical leap, standing straight with both feet flat on the floor, reaching up as high as you can, explosion in your lower body. The standing broad jump, again, taking a standing still body, that's what you're going to be in right before the ball snap, and then moving your body. What you want to do, you can go back to the combine results. They're at NFL.com if you want to go look them up. Look up the numbers. Take these 3 tests, add them together. See if you come up with a number that's close to or above 70. 70 has been the benchmark for me for, really predicting excellence. So you see right here, a 34 on the bench press, a 37-inch vertical leap, 10 feet on the standing broad jump for a number of 81. His name, J.J. Watt. Okay, we all saw him get drafted this year. Watch J.J. Watt. He's an explosive player. It was obvious, a first-round pick. Well, I have another player for you. He had a 30 in his bench press, 36 in his vertical leap, 10 in his standing broad jump for a 76. That's a very good number. Didn't go in the first round. And some people took him off their draft board because of some of the issues he's had off the field. But that explosive number, that kept a lot of teams interested in Mr. Houston out of University of Georgia. Keep your eye on those 2 players. I'm going to talk later about production numbers. Talk about one of the great players in this draft that didn't make it to 70, got close with the 67, but his production number was able to be balanced in, because at the end of the day, we're not looking for athletes only. We want guys who play football well. Production's going to tell us about that. But you can go evaluate the explosiveness of every player in the draft for yourself and keep the number 70 in your mind if you're looking for explosive guys. Well, you've learned a little bit about explosion. Now let's look at production. When you're evaluating players, you can sit at home during this whole process and look at production and make some decisions yourself. Let me give you an example of a guy in the front seven on defense and how I look at evaluating production. The thing I'm going to look at is this: sacks. I'm going to look at tackles for loss. I'm going to look at and add those two numbers up to arrive at a number of plays behind the line of scrimmage. That's production to me for a front seven player on defense. Then I'm going to look at that number and compare it to the number of games he played, the number of games he started. I'm looking to get a number over 1.0. Let me go up to the board. Let me show you a player, then I'll identify him for you. Here's a guy that was in this draft, drafted very high. How many sacks did he have in his career? 33. How many tackles for loss did he have as a college player? 51. He had a number of 84. Now I'm going to look at his games played. All right, he played in 47 games. Unless I watch all 47 games, I really can't determine how much he played. But when you do the math and divide those games, you get a number of 1.78, much higher than 1.0. His production's outstanding. If I look at it over his 30 starts, this guy's off the charts at 2.80. So when his explosion number was 67 and didn't make the 70, I didn't panic. I took his explosion number, which is good, not great, combined it with his production number, and I arrived at that number. And I'm all ready to take Von Miller as high as I can get him in this draft, because that's what Von Miller was. So for the person who says, well, he's only 245 pounds, go watch him play, go evaluate his explosion, take a look at his college production, and take him in the top of the first round. Tackling. Some claim it's a lost art in the National Football League. When you watch enough games like I do, you start to believe that might be true. Why is tackling getting so bad before we break down the art of tackling? Tackling got bad as soon as we went to an 80-man camp roster. Think about that. 80 guys come to camp. You really, with a salary cap, can't be moving players off and moving other players on. 53 are going to make the team. 2, on average, are going to the injured reserve. 8 are going to the practice squad. Well, we're only cutting 17 players, and we pay these guys so much, the starters, we can't afford to get them hurt. So nobody's tackling anybody. Well, that's not true. The Green Bay Packers told me they had a tackling circuit every day last year. They kind of thought of it as a high school routine, but as they got to the Super Bowl and started making great open field tackles, even the players acknowledged Dom Capers' concept of tackling and repeating the performance of tackling helped them become a better tackling team. I've been on teams where we haven't even hit tackling set. We don't talk about it. We have so many defenses to put in, we just never get to tackling. And then on every press conference, listen to them all on Mondays after games this year, you'll hear every losing coach say, well, we lost because we couldn't tackle and we couldn't block. You need to tackle, you need to block. But you as a fan, you need to know why a tackle didn't work. Let's talk about the art of tackling. First off, I'm coming to tackle you. Let's reduce the cushion, the space between you, the ball carrier, me, the tackler. Too many people throw the tackle too early, ineffective, don't have enough pop, don't make the tackle. The next thing that you hear coaches say, and a lot of old-time coaches are going to hear me say this, and not going to like what I'm going to say, we used to break down. That used to mean stop your feet at the tackle position when you're ready to tackle. What did we find out? You can't break down in front of Reggie Bush. He's gone. You got to slide in. You don't break down anymore. You keep your feet moving. Now you explode into the tackle. Head up. How many players tackle with their head down and they're pushed down with a straight arm? Arm wrap. Too many players are throwing a shoulder. Ronnie Lott got away with it. Everyone else has failed trying to do it. You got to wrap. You got to get your head across the tackler. If you're watching now a tackle on TV, you see the head of the tackler behind the ball carrier. He's now tackling with one arm. He can't make a tackle against an NFL back or receiver that way. Head across, head up, arm wrap, and the most important piece of tackling, and I've been in the NFL long enough to tell you, it's still one of the worst things they do, accelerate their feet through the tackle. Most average to below average tacklers stop their feet on contact. The sound of that plastic, of that shoulder pad, hitting the ball carrier is the key to accelerate your feet, not stop your feet. All those things break down, but starting this year when you watch them, you'll know exactly what they did wrong